Tucker Carlson flipped on Trump over his war with Iran. He did a long segment about this. Here's some of that now.
If Iranian forces killed the chairman of our Joint Chiefs of Staff, for example, would you consider it an act of war? You would. So what happened yesterday wasn't just another symbolic bombing sortie of the kind we've seen in Syria. It was a pivot point. Neocons in Washington understood that immediately. Congratulations to all involved in eliminating Qasem Soleimani, tweeted disgraced former National Security Advisor John Bolton. Hope this is the first step to regime change in Tehran, end quote. That, of course, has been the neocon objective all along. The president, though, has for years opposed that objective and in a statement said that regime change and war are not the point at all. According to the Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, meanwhile, Soleimani was killed to forestall planned attacks on Americans. But as he later conceded, those attacks would have occurred in the Middle East, not here in America.
President Trump's decision to remove Qasem Soleimani from the battlefield saved American lives. There's no doubt about that. He was actively plotting in the region to take actions, a big action as he described it, that would have put dozens, if not hundreds of American lives at risk. And last night was the time that we needed to strike to make sure that this imminent attack that he was working actively was disrupted.
Was there any imminent threat to the U.S. homeland?
These were threats that were located in the region.
Threats in the region. If you don't live in Washington, here's the translation. That would be in hostile Middle Eastern countries, places where American troops would never be in the first place were it not for the insistent demands of non-geniuses like Max Boot and John Bolton. But never mind. No one in Washington is in mood for big picture questions right now, questions the obvious ones like, is Iran really the greatest threat we face, and who's actually benefiting from this? And why are we continuing to ignore the decline of our own country in favor of jumping into another quagmire from which there is no obvious exit? By the way, if we're still in Afghanistan 19 years later, what makes us think there's a quick way out of Iran? And so on. Nobody is thinking like that right now. Meanwhile, it's pretty clear that things could start to move in the wrong direction pretty quickly. We're praying they don't, but they could. How do we know that? Because we've seen it before. We fought quite a number of wars around the Middle East in recent decades. We attacked Saddam Hussein twice, as you know. In the end, we killed him. We invaded and occupied Afghanistan. We toppled Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. We fought ISIS in Syria and then, for some reason, stuck around. We're still there. We joined humanitarian missions in Lebanon and Somalia. Our special forces have been quietly fighting in Yemen, Pakistan, Niger, who knows where else, many other places. In every single place, each of these conflicts has turned out to be longer and bloodier and more expensive than we were promised in the first place. The benefits? Often they've been non-existent. A lot of lectures about how the people we're killing deserve to die. Certainly they did. Hope that makes you feel better. What do the American people think about all of this? Not that anyone cares. Well, it's too soon, strictly speaking, to know the killing of Soleimani happened just last night. But just 5 months ago, after months of supposed Iranian provocation, Americans didn't seem to view Iran as a major concern, not even close. In a Gallup poll taken last August, just 18% of Americans said that they backed military force to shut down Iran's nuclear program. 78% said they preferred diplomacy and economic sanctions alone. So in a democracy, you'd think this would matter. But as is so often the case, the preferences of actual Americans don't enter the equation at all. They're immaterial. In 2016, Donald Trump ran on a promise of fewer foreign adventures, considering the ones we'd embarked upon didn't work very well. He vowed instead to focus on our problems here at home, which are growing. Against the odds, he won that election, probably because of that promise. But ever since, Washington, including some around the president, have been committed to ignoring the results of that election and its implications. Washington has wanted war with Iran for decades. They've been working toward it. They may have finally gotten it.
Trump messed up. I mean, he messed up for the obvious reasons. I mean, this was a war crime. It's illegal under U.S. law, under international law, under the Constitution. So there's the obvious ways in which he messed up. But what I mean by that is, in the lead up to the Iraq War, the U.S. public was massively propagandized. And, you know, it was like a year long of hearing nonstop, oh my God, Saddam Hussein's a threat. Oh my God, he worked with Osama bin Laden to do 9/11. Oh my God, he has weapons of mass destruction. And the implication was he's going to use them on us if we don't stop him. Now, that's insane. That's not true. None of that's true. But that's what people heard nonstop. Colin Powell, who was trusted, went to the UN and held up a vial and said, see, he's using uranium. They had all these, like, total BS, but intelligence reports where they're saying, like, here's the way his system works, and he went to Niger and got yellow cake uranium, and they like gave all the details that, again, ended up being totally false. Some of the information was gotten because intelligence agencies were fishing for it, and they would torture people until they gave them that answer. That's one of the ways we got it. And some of it I'm sure was just flat out made up. But point is, there was a year buildup. We went to war in Afghanistan in 2001. We went to war in Iraq in 2003. And there was just nonstop, the public was propagandized. And we had just had 9/11. So there's this thing that happens historically where if you're attacked and then the president takes you to war and he propagandizes you in the process, Bush's approval rating at the time of the beginning of the Iraq war, I'm not kidding, was like 90%. Because what happens is people feel that sense of patriotism after you're attacked. You realize, like, oh my God, we're under attack here. This is terrible. So we need leadership. And then everybody kind of falls in line. Now, Trump had tweeted in 2011, Obama's going to bomb Iran because he wants to get reelected. So that's how Trump was thinking, like, oh, if you want to get reelected, just bomb some shit. And now, a year before Trump's election, he bombs an Iranian general. But he messed up. He messed up because there was no imminent threat. No matter how much they try to say there wasn't. There was no imminent threat. That's total nonsense. Americans didn't know this guy before yesterday. They didn't. They didn't know him. And they didn't bother. They didn't give you the respect of propagandizing you. They didn't try to build a case. They acted, and now after the fact, they're like, no, trust us. He was really bad, and he was, an imminent attack or something. It's backfiring. Now, it sucks because Tucker and Geraldo Rivera are the two voices I've seen so far that are very skeptical in mainstream media. I have a feeling like Chris Hayes probably is the same, but the nightly news and, regular programming on CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News, it has been wall-to-wall pro-war coverage. So it's a shame that you only have some people in the media really pushing back, but I don't think this is going to go as Trump thinks it's going to go. I think there will be a massive backlash to this. So this is the state of affairs, man. We knew that Washington, D.C. and the intelligence agencies, they could not wait to attack Iran and try to do regime change there. And now that door's open. And Trump committed a war crime, murdered a general who had just defeated ISIS and was on a peace mission. That's when he was killed. He was on a peace mission, trying to ease tensions between Saudi Arabia and Iran. This is not going to end well. By the way, that same dynamic that I was just talking about, how the country usually falls in line after a war or after you've been attacked, that is exactly what's happening in Iran right now. That country was massively fractured. People were fighting, within the country. There were protests all the time. The economy's on the brink of collapse, also because of U.S. sanctions, by the way. But there was no unifying that country. It couldn't happen. Trump managed to unify that country because this general was not involved in the domestic repression in Iran. He's known for defeating ISIS. That's what he's known for. So you killed the guy. ISIS is an existential threat to Shia in the region. They want to genocide the Shia. So you killed the guy who defeated ISIS? That's what he's most known for? His funeral is ridiculous. There was, it was maybe literally millions of people in the streets. All right, Democrats, your move. I would resist this to the high heavens, man. This would be the main issue I'm talking about on the campaign trail if I'm running for president. And if I was in Congress, I would just clobber the Republicans over the head with this. Because this is exactly what you fear it is. a criminal government casually committing war crimes because they want to get into a deeper war with Iran and overthrow the government and do regime change because we want to serve our corporations and jack their oil and feed the military-industrial complex.